It happens sometimes. You get a little click happy and click the wrong thing.
Oh, good. Let's see if we can get some people on this.
For sure. All right, make sure we're going live on IG. Well, yeah, it was a decent weekend until we lost yesterday, and our season's over. Our softball season's over, so
Oh
didn't
man,
didn't end with a chip. So, um, it was fun though.
you
But
do all sorts of sports. You're always playing like basketball too, aren't you?
yeah, trying to stay fit, man. Trying to at least be able to play for another 10 years before I gotta retire them and play golf with the rest of my friends.
Yep.
Um, so
You golf?
no, no, not at all.
No.
Uh, I go to Top Golf. That's
Yeah,
about
that's
it.
always fun.
I just like seeing how far I can hit it. That's the only thing I'm interested in at this point. Um, but all right, y'all, let's get into this. Two lost office hours. We have another session with my guy Ryan Schmidt. We are going to start having Ryan on. I think it's every fifth Monday. I think that's what we agreed to, just because it's so important to get a legal perspective. So he is going to be here answering your questions. There's so much ignorance when it comes to the legal side of, well, there's so much ignorance just in general, but especially everybody turns into a fake lawyer. Everybody thinks they know what they're talking about. So I think it's important that we have these conversations. But before we jump into this, how was your weekend? What was your win for the week, Ryan? Let it share some positivity for us if you have some.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a first time father. I have a 4 month old baby at home. She's awesome,
Congrats.
and she's just doing so great, and we're so proud of her, and just how well she's just adjusting to being a new human. So I just want to shout out my daughter, just to win for just being her.
Nice, nice, nice. Now we fielded some questions last week. We made a post and people sent some really great questions, and I have some questions too. So I know we'll be able to fill this hour for sure. The question that I wanted to start out with, there is a recent lawsuit. I believe the Isaac Hayes estate is suing Donald Trump for using their music or their father's music in at a Trump rally. Do you have any idea of like how that works? Can we provide some like can people just use any music at a big rally like that? What's kind of your take on a situation like that?
Yeah, this all stems back to the rights that you have as a copyright owner and copyright holder. Section 105 of the Copyright Act gives you what's known as a bundle of rights. And every single thing that you can do with your music or any of your creative work
Mm-hmm.
stems from that. That's the right to reproduce, to distribute, to perform publicly, to display publicly, to create a derivative work. So likely we're talking about the right to perform your own copyright publicly. And you can license that out to other people. And that's what ASCAP and BMI do. They license out your catalog and their entire members' catalog to certain venues, bars, restaurants, etc., so that the songwriters will get paid a percentage anytime that is used. But that doesn't apply to like one-off events in like political rallies and stuff like that. That'll apply to concert venues, absolutely, bars, restaurants, places that have ongoing live performances. But these one-off events and festivals really need to secure their own licenses, especially when it's something like a rally where they're kind of doing the same speech and thing every single time. Like there's
Yeah,
musical cues and stuff like that. That absolutely needs to be cleared with both the publishing side and the owners of the master recording. And that's
yeah.
why, especially because an artist, especially since it's political, may not want to be associated with that message.
Mm-hmm.
So they need the opportunity to say yes or no. And the answer very likely will be no, and that's why you have this lawsuit, because it's both a copyright infringement, but they're also arguing it's bad for the brand to be associated with a political message.
Yeah. So in a dispute like that, like how are like some of the penalties calculated? I think they're suing for like $3 million or something like that. Like how do you come up with this dollar value should it be decided that they are owed some money in this situation?
You have different ways of calculating those damages. The Copyright Act gives you the ability to kind of choose your own adventure on how to pick and choose your damages. You can go the statutory damages route. That is a preset range of damages. I haven't looked at that complaint close enough to see how they're coming up with that $3 million. But my guess is that they're going through the statutory damages route, and you can get up to $150,000 per infringement if it's willful, meaning the other side intentionally did something against your own rights.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is that there's been multiple rallies times $150,000 per event to get to that $3 million. Other ways to do it is to estimate your actual damages that you've lost X amount of money. And that might be something that's preferable if it's a song that has done so well that you actually want a piece of the profits that infringement has caused.
Got you. I think one thing that confuses artists around performance royalties, because it says performance, I think the assumption is like you have to actually be there, like live performing the music. Obviously, that's not the case, right?
No, it's any performance publicly. So it can be a recorded performance, it can be a jukebox, the radio, on television, anytime either your sound recording or your music and lyrics are performed, that's a public performance.
Yeah. So nobody can just take your music and perform it at a rally or something that you may not agree with. So that's something that you can protect yourself, protect your music. So I think that's a good case to continue to follow, and it's just kind of interesting. So cool. So there was another question. This has come up so many times. Should I copyright my music?
Just in general, like at all?
Yeah, like I know that there's to some degree of protection just knowing that you created it, but should you copyright it with the copyright office? Like in what instances should you be doing? Should you be doing that for your whole catalog? Should it just songs that are doing well? Like, because you can actually get copyright registration through the Two Laws platform. But so I think that's why it comes up fairly frequently. It's like how often or which songs should go through this process.
Great question. And let me clarify that this advice is looking at US copyright law, because it will differ from country to country. But generally, you already have a copyright in your creative work the second you put in any tangible means. Like the second I write down on a piece of paper music and lyrics, anytime I pull out my iPhone and record a voice memo, I have copyright to whatever I've created. But that automatic rights doesn't get me certain things that you might think you can get. Like all the good protections come from the federal registering. The right to sue comes from federal registering. You can't even file a lawsuit and get into court in the US until you've actually federally registered. And you won't be able to get statutory damages or attorney's fees if the infringing act happened before you registered. So there's a lot of benefit to having that registered kind of close to when you release a song. So if anything were to ever happen down the road, you can have the fullest extent of protections under the Federal Copyright Act. So I generally think that it's good. Should you register every single song you've ever created? It just depends on what you're doing with it. I mean, there's people that are such prolific writers that they might write hundreds of songs, but they only release a handful a year. So I think the ones that are actually publicly released are the ones you most want to protect, because there's probably a pretty low chance that a song that's not released that nobody knows about is going to be discovered and copied.
Right. So yeah, obviously the songs that have more traction, the songs that are more popular, there's a more of a risk of that happening. So maybe, I can't tell anybody like what the exact threshold is. It's like every song over 100,000 streams or every song over but just know, I guess you kind of have to draw that line where you think you're comfortable, just kind of given, your risk tolerance and, the money you have in order to, because it costs, and I should know this answer off the top. I should know how much it costs to copy, to register through Two Loss, but I don't think it's that expensive. So
When I looked it up, that's through a partnership with Cosigned.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not, I looked it up. It's not terribly expensive, and I think the actual government filing fees are more expensive than what Cosigned actually charges to file the application.
yeah. So my apologies. I should know that off the top. Next time I will know that. I'll just be honest. Like when I ran Funk Volume, we didn't send any songs to get for copyright registration. I think that's a lot of artists, not, I don't even think they know what you just said in terms of like being able to sue. They have to be registered. And I don't even think I knew that at the time. So, fast forward, if I was to ever start a label again, that definitely would copyright at least a good percentage of our songs that we felt strongly about, for sure.
And you want to make sure that you're copywriting both parts of that song too. So like a lot of artists I talk to aren't familiar with, there's two copyrights in music. There's the publishing side, which is the composition, the music and lyrics, and there's the master side, which is your sound recording. And each one of those needs to have are its own copyrights and need to be registered. Because there was a pretty famous case that came out only a couple months ago where somebody sued Childish Gambino for copyright infringement.
Hmm.
They had only registered the sound recording copyright. And in the complaint, they alleged that Childish Gambino stole melodies and lyrics, which is
Mm,
the composition. So the court said you don't have a federally registered copyright in the composition because you didn't register it correctly. It was as easy as clicking a checkbox that said, I want to register both, but
right.
they didn't do it.
Man, you got to be detail oriented here, because yeah, that's a terrible mistake. I'm sure it cost them a lot of money by not clicking a button. That's all bad. A lot of producers reach out and they ask, how can they protect their beats prior to sending them out? You have any guidance on, obviously beats are being sent left and right. Producers are, trying to get placements, get their beats in artists' hands. Any suggestions for protecting their beats prior to sending them out?
It probably doesn't make economic sense to federally register every beat that you send out, because I know plenty of beat makers that make hundreds of beats and send them out, and you just don't know which one's going to get picked up. There are some good practices though. One is to send a kind of lower quality like MP3, something that isn't ready for release, and put a ton of like digital watermarking on it. Like put your producer tag an obnoxious amount of times. Like, you hear like a BeatStars demo, you'll hear like BeatStars come up every 15 seconds or something. So that track is kind of unusable unless they actually want to get the real version.
Right.
So that's one thing you can do, is don't give them like the mixed and mastered wave file where they can just jump into the studio and rap on it. Give them something that they know that they would have to come back to you for the real version that's ready for release. The other thing is, I think there's nothing wrong with in sending out those beats. Say, hey, I'd love for you to take a look at this. Here's how I usually work with artists. I expect a 50-50 split on publishing and master royalties. Let me know if that works for you. And the artist is going to say yes or no. And now you're having a conversation. And at the very least, you have a paper trail that you've discussed these splits, and that's gonna do a lot better than just sending out beats and hoping hoping nothing bad happens. But if
Right.
you do send out beats and there is no deal, somebody releases it, they don't pay you, they don't give you credit, they don't do anything like that, that is your copyright because you own that beat. And at best, you would either have created a derivative work with that artist or you would have come to some agreement where you were co-owners of this new work that was created. But still, that all requires your involvement. So you, as the original owner, facing something that's an unauthorized use of your work, you can absolutely issue a DMCA takedown from the DSPs and wherever and get that song taken off Spotify, Apple Music, wherever, because that's your song and you own the copyrights.
Yeah. I know that there are artists that have been in the game for a minute, that still believe that they can just use people's things and just sort it out later or not sort it out. I mean, it's wild. I mean, it's you would think people that have been in the game for so long, have like a good understanding and method with how they work with their collaborators. It's just super important to communicate everything up front, get it in writing, get everybody on the same page. Because the last thing you want to do is start submitting claims and get stuff taken down after you've already started to roll out, put some money into marketing, and then things get really messy. So, getting everything situated and sorted before music starts coming out is the ideal situation. Let's see. We have Daria underscore NYC who asks, how do I register a remix? How do I collect mechanical rights from a remix?
So it's going to be the same exact method as collecting for that original song, but this is where like naming conventions and metadata is really important. If you have a remix, name it remix. Or if there's like an artist feature that's in there, have a different version so that the DSPs, your performance rights organization, the MLC knows that there are different songs, that they have different ISRC codes, they have different registered work IDs with your performance rights organization. So say like the song is called like Last Summer. If this is truly a remix, Last Summer, and it's going to be the only remix, you're not going to do like a whole bunch of club mix, slow mix, fast version, whatever. You just do Last Summer in parentheses remix. That's a good way of registering it with your PRO and with MLC if that's exactly how you are releasing it on your DSPs. But make sure that they're consistent because they're going to all look to each other and they want all those titles to be the same. I think, Dan, I think you're muted.
Oh, my apologies. So we have a follow-up question to the question that I asked prior. And for people that are watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, or Twitter, you can put your questions in the comments and we can answer some in real time as well. The questions that I've been reading off of were fielded last week under an Instagram post. So we have, more than enough questions for today. But if there are people watching in real time and want some questions answered, feel free to submit them in the comment section and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. Jay asked, is it common for the producer fee to be fully recoupable?
I've seen it go any number of ways, and it's just one of those things that it depends on each deal. You can have a producer fee that is not recoupable at all, that you get your fee and you get back end master points. That's a thing that we always tell producers to look out for and get, but it's very rare that even the artist is getting royalties because of recoupment. There's so much debt that's put on a song that something has to be super super successful for there to even be back end royalties. But
Right.
there's three options when we're talking about a producer recoupment. It's either the advance or the fee that's paid to the producer is just considered a flat fee. That's my services fee, and there's no recoupment. It could be that the producer fee is treated as 50% fee and 50% advance. So only half of that amount is going to be recoupable, and the other half is just a straight cash money advance. And then there's a third where it's fully recoupable, and it's just going to depend on the deal. I would say that the 50% and the non-recoupable are more standard, but it's just going to depend on the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the independent community, I see artists and producers doing all kind of things. I think you'll probably hear me say this maybe 5 times throughout this hour. I think it's just important for everybody to clearly understand exactly what the agreement is, what people agree to, and make sure that it's in writing. Because there's so many different variables around, you know, what could change the deal structure, right? Some of these producers have brands in and of themselves. They have platforms. They're helping to market the music, and they're more than just, you know, sending a beat over. In that case, you know, the variables might change in their favor a little more because they're going to be a bigger piece into potentially why this song can do better. Um, you know, and then on the flip side, if none of that does exist and it was just a beat sent over, then, you know, again, maybe the deal changes maybe a little bit more in favor of the artist. So there's just a lot of things that can make the conversation different. And so it's just hard to make any blanket statement about anything in the music industry these days because there's so many different situations. So I try to not make as many blanket statements of how things should be because, you know, could be different for another situation. But appreciate that question, Jay. And again, if there's anybody else watching, has a comment or a question, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll try to get to it. Let's see. Peter Heridian Music said a band I played in for, I don't know how folks be writing these days, but a band I played for recorded a live show and released the audio, but different footage on a live DVD without payment or acknowledgement. I'm wondering where I stand rights/royalties wise. So they played it. They he played in a band for, and they recorded a live show, and then they released it on a DVD. I'm assuming they sold it. So he's wondering if he's owed anything or what the conversation should be.
This goes back. I mean, I think the theme of this whole discussion is get things in writing. You know, have an agreement and know exactly what that understanding is. Because if there is no agreement, who's to say what the deal was? Some people might think that you were like a hired gun to play some shows, and some people might think that this was a band partnership where everybody equally split everything that was created. It's kind of impossible to say what the right answer is because those are the two different arguments that would be made if this thing ever went to court. I will tell you what the copyright law says, and this is kind of a default rule. It says that anytime two or more people create a creative work together and there is no agreement, they're going to be deemed equal co-owners of that work. And that can be a pretty harsh default rule. So make sure that that's what you want it to be. Always a safer bet to have things in writing and know what the situation is. I mean, it's one of those things like in that situation, I hear it all the time. You might be an equal co-owner of everything, or you might not be. And it's just going to depend on the specific circumstances, how you got paid. I see. Yeah, my question's still on the screen, by the way. Great job. Great call, Jay. Yeah, it might just depend on like what the judge and the jury and who thinks which side sounds better that given day. But something that you don't want to leave up to chance with those people, have an agreement in writing.
For sure. I think yeah, you're right. A lot of these questions are going to end with the same thing, like have an agreement in writing, etc. Well, I'm curious to know, you know, let's just say as an up and coming artist, let's say, you know, you start to get a little traction. What in your opinion have you been seeing is like a fair deal. Let's just say it's an artist with, you know, 200,000 monthly listeners, starting to get some traction, starting to build a community and the label's interested. Um, there's no, I know again, it's going to be a wide range of things, but what can kind of the expectation be for an artist of that size that's maybe working with like an independent label, like a larger independent label at this point to help them get to the next level?
If they're truly working with an independent or like a major affiliated independent and they're not expecting a huge advance,
Yeah.
then it might be a licensing situation where they enter a license for a certain amount of time. They don't give up their master ownership to the label. And there's probably a smaller advance, but some pretty good marketing commitment and recording commitment. Like you don't take as much money just to like buy a car and go shopping, but you do have a decent enough money to record music and to market it, because that's really what this game is about right now.
Mhm.
Um, that I would say you're probably looking at a, it depends on what the label situation is. If it's truly a label, the 50-50 split is pretty common these days.
Yeah.
If it's a distributor that isn't doing all of the label services but some of it, basically they um, put the music up there and they might do some marketing and do some playlist pitching, stuff like that. That might be more of a 70-30 split. But the money is just going to range. It's going to be really a wide range. It could be a zero advance. It could be, um, a $250,000 advance. But the advances I'm seeing these days, it's rare that advance for a newer artist that has about that amount of monthly listeners, 200,000 or less, is getting an advance bigger than $50,000.
Yeah, that I think that's consistent. I mean, I don't sit on the A&R team, but from what I understand, like obviously here at Two Loss, we do deals with artists that are starting to get a little traction. A lot of times, it's just an advance on existing catalog. We're not too aggressive with futures deals these days, but I would imagine that the ranges that you just spoke to is consistent with what I'm seeing here at Two Loss. Um, let's see. I'm wondering. That's not a legal question, but hopefully somebody from Two Loss is watching and can answer that question for you, John. Let's see. What's the best way to go about registering different versions of the same song? Heard a few opinions, but thought I'd get your input.
So if we're talking about like the remix situation, then it's having really good titling, labeling, metadata, and keeping that consistent across all your platforms. Like if you have acapella version, slowed down version, sped up version, remix, club mix, featuring so and so remix, just make sure that that's consistent and have the title that you release it through Two Lost to your DSPs be the same exact title as you register with your PRO and with the MLC and with Sound Exchange. Because again, if you don't have that consistent, then there's going to be a disconnect between we've got these royalties, but we don't know if that's what you're talking about. And check also just like basic stuff, like even if you're titling it right, but you do a typo when you're doing a BMI registration, that could mess up the flow of money. So double check your work.
Yeah. Going back to deal structure, Tremaine Jordan though asked, how does a single deal work different from, maybe a multiple album record deal?
I see the single deals most often right now in like the electronic and like house music scene, especially there's a ton of like European labels that's all they do is single deals.
Mm-hmm.
A single deal is a mini record deal. It's non-exclusive in that you don't owe ongoing rights as a artist to that label. You are giving up the rights to that one song, like on a song by song basis. So it doesn't tie you down long term. You could do 10 different singles and have those released with 10 different labels. Usually, it's also very genre specific, but usually single deals don't have a big advance unless this is a song that like new music is really tough to give any firm numbers on because it's so
Yeah.
speculative whether or not that song's going to do anything. But there are single song deals where A&R sees a song that's already doing really well organically, and
Yeah.
they know that they can re-ingest it into their distribution platform. I'm sure Two Lost does this. You can re-ingest it into your distribution platform. Know that with the right marketing and stuff, this can go from really good on a organic level to amazing.
Yeah.
That's also another type of single song deal that I've seen.
Yeah, no, that's what I've seen as well. It's like a song that's doing well. Will get entered into a single deal. They'll get some money and try to put more fuel on the fire to kind of take it from, like, let's say 1 million streams, and they see the opportunity to maybe take it to 10 million or 20 million. I've seen that as well. Um, dope. Trademarking my name. Should I trademark my artist name? And how do I go about doing that?
You should. I think that if you ever want to protect yourself and prevent other people from releasing music under your exact same name, absolutely consider federally trademarking it, because a trademark is a federal monopoly over that name for that purpose. Like, but it's specific to the industry or the classification that you've registered it. That's why you can have Delta Airlines and Delta Faucets. You know, like it's you can create a trademark for you as a musical artist that is performing live and making recorded music, but that wouldn't prevent necessarily somebody that is opening a pizza shop from using the same exact name, unless you've also developed that name and recognition in that industry. It's something you should definitely consider. The U.S. Trademark Patent and Trademark Office is where you'd register it. It's something that you shouldn't, like. If you want to do it, you should do it as soon as possible, because it takes up to a year for that whole process to be completed and for that trademark to be live, because it goes through a lot of different processes where it's open to public objection. People can say that's actually my name. The trademark application can get canceled. So you want to do that. It's one of those things you can absolutely, in my opinion, you can absolutely do a copyright application yourself, and maybe even use tools like Cosigned. I haven't used them, but that sounds like a good alternative as well. But the trademark application is something that you probably should have a lawyer go through with you, because it's pretty harsh. It's a more expensive filing fee, and if you, for whatever reason, get that trademark application denied, like you didn't know that that name wasn't available, somebody already had registered that name, they're going to keep that $500 filing fee. And you're going to be like out of luck. So something that I'd recommend you have an attorney help you with.
And for each class that you file for, it can get expensive, especially if you're filing in, you want to have it for merch, and you want to do it for recorded music, and you want to, I don't know how many, but I think we ended up filing for like 4 or 5 different classes. So it can be a bit expensive, but if this is your business and you want to really invest in yourself, and this is something that you see long term, you want to protect your brand, because the last thing you want to do is have to like pivot names and rebranding, and that can probably end up costing you more money than the trademark application process to begin with. So if you're serious, you should definitely be considering it.
And it gives you crazy rights too. You can probably, especially like me, my artist name when I was releasing music is also my legal name. So there's plenty of Ryan Schmidts out there, and there's plenty of other music out there that isn't me. If you're an artist and you trademark your name, you have the legal right to prevent other people from releasing music. And you can go to Spotify and you can say, my name is so and so, and take it down. You best believe that Bob Dylan has the right to have anybody who's also happened to be named Bob Dylan that wants to release music has the right to take their music down and have them rename their artist project.
So did you beat all the other Ryan Schmidts to the punch, and you got the trademark for Ryan Schmidt?
I didn't. No, it's like one of those things that like by the time that I like went through the whole law school thing and became a lawyer, I looked at my back catalog, correctly or incorrectly as like, yeah, they can, if somebody wants to do anything with that, they can.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, if you're just starting in your journey and you still haven't figured out exactly how you want to brand or name yourself, it's something to consider. You may want to do a trademark search of your own just to kind of see what's out there, what's taken. Again, so you don't start building on a foundation that you ultimately have to pivot from.
And also check, this is like not trademark. I mean, this is something that I do for trademark searches, but just do a simple Google search. If your name, even if it's not an artist thing, like if your name is so generic that you will never show up in Google searches. Like I represented a band once and their name was Dragonfly. And I was like, dude, this is a terrible name because there's everything with the name Dragonfly is going to show up before you. It's not
Yeah.
like necessarily just your band.
That's also terrible because like the expectation is like bands have really cool names, like really cool, unique names. And the best you can come up with is Dragonfly.
Right.
Um, nah, we're expecting something better when it comes to bands for sure. But no, definitely something you should think about. You want to establish, even separate from a trademark perspective and a Google search, perspective, something memorable, something that means something, something that's different than everything else out there. So yeah, let me see if there were some questions that came through on the comments before I continue going down my list here. Let's see. Oh, Jay came back with another question. Say I receive an agreement for a placement, but don't have the funds to have a lawyer look at it. Any free or affordable resources? Is ChatGPT an option? What do we got for this, Ryan?
ChatGPT is a wonderful tool. I think that you just got to know what its limitations are and what it is like, what it's designed to do. Um, it's a powerful tool in the right hands. Like I wouldn't necessarily take my like medical labs and run it through ChatGPT and have it tell me like what it says. I'd want a doctor to tell me what that all means. Same thing with documents. I think it's a really, really good tool to get a summary, like a high level like summary of what something says. But if you're asking it to like draft and negotiate and stuff like that, some pretty wonky things can happen because it's a tool that is built to guess the next best word. Like that's how it was trained. It's trying to use word associations and guess what word is most commonly going to come next. And because of that, it's going to make things up when it doesn't know the answer to it. And this is the biggest thing that like I see. There's a lot of things that it can do well, but there's also some things that aren't public. Like it's trained on public information, so it will know what a master is and what publishing is and stuff like that. But will it necessarily know something that I've learned like in my practice that isn't public information about what you should really look for in this type of deal or how you could negotiate it? Maybe not. So I think like definitely use it. Make sure that you understand, like ask for summaries, ask for clarifying questions, know that there's limitations to it. There's other resources. If you don't have the funds to hire a lawyer, you might apply for some legal aid. I know there's plenty of music cities and towns that have like a set legal aid for performers. I was from Nashville and we had the Nashville Legal Aid Society that was set up just as a pro bono service for artists. And I'm sure many, many different music towns have that. So consider that as well.
Gotcha. So there's a question here about another distributor. I think it's in reference to how they've been a bit more aggressive, like just taking music down for fear of the streams being fake, or maybe they've identified, some straight fake streams, maybe rightly or wrongly, but they've taken the music down. If an artist feels like they did that unjustifiably, is there anything that they can do in that situation?
First of all, can we grab Jay's comment down?
Oh yeah, my bad, my bad.
You're
Okay.
good. I appreciate you. I would have busted out the distributor, but I appreciate the tact. Okay, so so it's happening a lot right now, and different distributors are acting differently. But as we know, Spotify last fall said that they were going to change their policies. They're demonetizing any songs under the 1,000 stream limit, and they're also going to be more aggressive if they determine that a song has more than 90% fake streams. They reserve the right to fine the label or the distributor $10 per violation. And that's not $10 per fake stream. That's $10 per instance where they suspect there might be some gaming of the system. So there's different.
It's only $10. I thought it was a lot more than that, but I'm sure it adds up. But
yeah, and well, you do see distributors try to use build in liquidated damages. Like I've seen other distribution agreements where they'll have a set fee and they'll say, if we find this, it's going to be $1,000 hit to your account. Mm-hmm. But the policy with Spotify is that it is a $10 per violation thing, and that might have changed, but it's not a ton of money. But if you figure your platform distributes millions of songs, that $10 per violation could add up pretty fast.
Yeah.
So what artists can do if they think that their distributor is kind of unfairly targeting them? Like there's some distributors that are really scared about this because they've built platforms on being like the McDonald's of distribution, like being the cheapest, the fastest, the easiest. And so they built their whole practice on volume.
Yeah.
And that is going to come back to bite them if Spotify starts enforcing this and they've got to pay $10 per each botted violation. So they've created their own in-house tools to detect this, where it's gone so far as they'll reach out to the artist and they'll say, we think this is suspected botting. We're taking this down. The artist will reach out to Spotify or go to their Spotify for Artist account, and it's all editorial playlists. It's all organic. There's no marketing. There's no botting, whatever. It comes down to the terms and conditions of each platform. That's something that I would love more artists and musicians to know about the consequences of, because that is a contract. Just because you scroll through it when you're signing up and creating an account, I agree to these terms, that doesn't mean that isn't legally binding on you. So whatever those terms and conditions say, as long as they're not in themselves illegal, are going to be binding. And you can't say, well, I didn't read them, because guess what? They also put in there that you agree that you've read these by clicking this button. So that will greatly limit your ability to raise a legal fight. Another issue with going after distributors is if that distribution company is outside of the United States, that can make it really expensive and impractical to take any type of legal action. If you have to hire counsel in a different country and you have to fly to that country every time there's a court hearing, that's not really something that is going to be in your best economic interest. But one thing that I will say is, if you think that a song is taken down unfairly, you're probably not going to be able to convince that distributor that they're wrong, because that's just their policy. And a lot of times, it was a computer AI system that was flagging it and sending out that email anyway. Get that ISRC code and find a new distribution company, upload it with the same ISRC. You can usually save that same metadata and stream data, and now you're under somebody else's umbrella.
Yeah. The terms and conditions, I remember there was another distribution company that had some real interesting terms and conditions. They had a first right of refusal baked into it. I created a video about it because it's a large distribution company, and I thought that was unique. You don't normally see that in a and the first right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a first right of refusal means if you're using their platform and say you get offered a deal from a major label, this distribution company now has the right to be able to kind of match that offer, or and essentially compete with that offer, so that you stay with that distribution company as opposed to taking the deal that you might really want to take.
Yeah, and that could be tough, especially if you aren't happy with that relationship.
Right. That's not, you don't normally see that in a distribution company, do you?
You don't, no, not in the not in the consumer facing side of a distribution platform. If you're talking about a distribution deal where we've got like individual contracts that have been negotiated, you might see that. But if you're talking about a platform where you create an account and this is all just baked into the terms and conditions, not something I typically see.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was a bit weird at the time. I don't. It might still be in there. I don't know. Just make sure you pay attention to those terms and conditions. Um, you said, let's see, and all this, like this botting and stuff. It typically stems from these playlist services, right? Because every artist wants to run up their streams. These playlist services sometimes are guaranteeing you a number of streams, which is wild. But I know you want to get your numbers up. A lot of artists are desperate to get their numbers up. This isn't technically a legal question, but you responded to someone, said it was a good question. So I'm assuming you know something about, like, or have maybe some input or advice around using some of these streaming services. Are there ones that are okay versus ones that aren't okay that you've seen?
I mean, there's one that I've used recently that I use for my own music, because I don't like to like recommend things that I haven't tried myself,
Right.
And so I'll just try things. One that I used recently for playlist pitching that I had good results with, that I thought was like they were definitely real playlists and real streams, and led to a small bump in some real listeners, was Symphony OS. And
Mm-hmm.
they are a new platform that really is integrated into the like Facebook Meta ads world, and converting those types of ad campaigns over to streaming listeners and stuff like that. But they also have playlist pitching, which I thought was very reasonable, and it delivered exactly what it said it was going to deliver. It delivered based on they think they'll keep pitching you until you get on at least one playlist, right? And then that audience, they'll guarantee the audience size of that playlist. They won't guarantee the number of streams you get. They won't guarantee how many people pick it up. Like in my say, they only guaranteed a 30,000 audience size of monthly listeners, but 3 people picked it up, and that was 90,000. So that was I was exceeded my expectations. So I like them. There's other ones that if they're guaranteeing streams, the only time where I'm okay with that is if it's not under a set amount of time. If that campaign is going to run for as long as it takes for you to get that amount, then they might just be legitimate playlist pitching until for the next 6 months, until you hit 50,000 streams, whatever, on that song. But if they guarantee 1 million streams in 30 days, that probably something worthwhile.
Does and again, this is not necessarily a legal question, but you might know the answer to this. Even if a stream is fake and it's not maybe identified by Spotify right away, that still gets paid out on, correct or not correct?
If it gets flagged as not legitimate, then it won't get paid out.
Right.
So that'll freeze your freeze your royalty payments, and it'll mess up your algorithm too. Like Spotify is an algorithm just like Instagram and TikTok, and it needs to know who you are and what genre you are. So the more organic, or the more you can get on playlists that actually align with your sound, the more information you're going to feed to the algorithm. All right, this is who you are. This is who I should recommend it to. But if you just bought, well, as in paid for, not the bot, but they're kind of synonymous sometimes. If you just bought X amount of streams, that could be a bot farm in India, and they could have every single genre doing that same thing, and now you've just completely messed up what that looks like. So yeah, it can mess up your payments, but also I think the most important thing practically is the money is upside down. The money that you pay to get those streams is always going to be more than the money you're going to earn for each stream.
Yeah. So we're actually, hoping to, we're in initial talks to hopefully integrate Symphony within the Two Lost platform. Love the Symphony guys over there. I think they're just thinking about things the right way. They're building a platform with a lot of integrity. And those are types of brands and people that you want to be aligned with. Playlist pitching, it's never been like top of the list for me in terms of what I recommend to artists to do for promotion. I mean, if you've done everything else, like your visuals are on point and you're running some Facebook ad campaigns and things like that, and you have a little extra money and you feel like, there's a playlist service that is credible and you want to give a shot to, it's just tough because it's hard to convert like playlist listens to like actual fans. So a lot of these people are listening to playlists and they're not even looking down like as it's going. There's been, even especially these algorithmic playlists where ultimately that's where a lot of independent artists can drive up streams. But I'll put on a playlist and I'm listening to the same artist, and I look down and actually the artist has changed 4 or 5 different times. They just all make the same kind of music. They just all sound the same. So it's not like I became a fan of any of these folks. I just kind of listened to it and went about my day. So it's really hard to convert. It's hard to convert streams to actual fans, but like playlist placements to actual fans, it's even tougher in my opinion. So it's not a place where you really want to throw a lot of money, even though you might feel good now that your song has 100,000 streams, but how many fans did you really get to even know, what you look like or what your name is, from those streams. So
Right. And don't be afraid to make content, because that's the free, unless you're hiring a company, that's the free way of building up fans. The algorithm is very creator friendly right now. And if you're making good quality stuff, people are going to find you, and that's free. So like,
yeah,
it used to be that you had to drive to every single city and tour and sell CDs out of the back of your car. You can make videos from your bedroom, like reach
yeah.
the audience.
Yeah, no, we're gonna talk all about that. So we have a big announcement. I shouldn't make the announcement here. We're doing a live event that we'll be touring, starting in 4 cities, and if it goes well, we're gonna roll it out. That's all I'm gonna let you guys know. But at these events, we're gonna be talking through like content strategies, rollout strategies, all of like that, those grassroots efforts to really build community, because ultimately that's how you really build a valuable catalog, is to have a community that really resonates with your music and listens to it for years and years to come, right? Because there's a lot of people that, and playlists, like you might get a bump in streams because of a playlist, but as soon as you stop paying, your monthly listeners go right back where they were. But if you're starting to build community and creating the content that Ryan's talking about, and it's consistent, and people, you're making songs that just tap into people emotionally, they're going to stream that music for a very long time. And that makes your catalog so valuable. If you ever come to a 2 loss and want it advanced against it, when we run your royalty report, we're going to see that there's very minimal streaming decay in your songs. So your catalog is going to be that much more valuable, and we can give you a lot more money as an advance against your catalog. So that's hopefully what you're building towards. Ryan, what's new for you in the next few months? Was anything that we should be letting people know about?
Well, one thing that I'm working on right now is I'm working on a couple books. I really want to, over at my Instagram page and having conversations like this, I really want to democratize access to legal help in the music industry, because there's so many people that need it and don't have the access. So over at that page on my Instagram, bunch of free industry updates in game, but also like the resources that are available are sometimes really dense and confusing and not intuitive. You know, you've been in the game for a long time. I was a singer songwriter, then I went to music business undergrad, then I went to law school, and I did all this. So like everything I've learned has kind of been sitting around there. And I don't even think that there's necessarily a good like resource for somebody that doesn't have 15, 20 years to like learn everything they need about it. Like what is like a like let's have an ebook that's 50 pages that tells you like here's the actual stuff you need to know, you know, and
Yeah.
then go out there and like obviously learn what you need to learn on your own. But I want to work on some type of like ebook that is the the quick and dirty. Here's the music business.
Nice. Nice. Well, keep us posted because that's definitely something that will support and help amplify the messaging around. Remind people where they can find you on Instagram. What's your handle?
Yeah, my Instagram is ryanschmidt.esq.
Awesome. Yeah, make sure you follow him. He's been putting out a lot of great content. As you can see, he's got a great setup. He's prepped for this. I think this is something that he's definitely gonna be back here every 5 weeks. I believe we have it. So every 5 weeks he's gonna be on Two Lost Office Hours answering your questions. So if you didn't get your question answered today, there will be more opportunities for that. Um, Last update, we have relaunched and rebranded the Music Entrepreneur Club. So I will tell the story of why we kind of pivoted from the Music Entrepreneur Club to the At Odds podcast. It's very similar to like an artist journey, but I'm going to create a video that kind of explains the details. But the short end of it is we're back, we're rebranded, we're still dropping a podcast a week. It is now, again, the Music Entrepreneur Club. We have some great episodes in store. The one that dropped today features Young MC. I don't know if there's any older people listening to this that know who Young MC is or the song Bust a Move, but he was a rapper in the 80s and 90s, still putting out music, still touring, doing hundreds of shows a year. So make sure you check out that conversation because he dropped a lot of gems. Because before we were putting the podcast on DJ Payne One's page, but we realized we got to start building out our own page for the Music Entrepreneur Club. So you can go to YouTube, go to @Music Entrepreneur Club on Instagram and just click the link in the bio. Check out the conversation. Let me know what you guys think. Next week, we'll have another episode of Two Lost Office Hours. As always, Monday, we'll try to start at 12 with no technical difficulties this time around. Any last words, Ryan? We good to go?
No, I'm just thank you for the conversation. Looking forward to having more.
Yes, sir. Until next time, everybody have a great week. Hopefully stack some wins. Share your wins for Share Your Wins Wednesday. I want to know what you guys are doing. Got to make sure we're making progress every single week. I'm out of here. Peace.